Okay guys, welcome to my first weight loss medication video in this video playlist. This is gonna be about the GLP-1 medications. What the heck is a GLP-1? It's a glucagon-like peptide 1. In plain English, they're the once weekly injectables that you hear people talking about, whether it's Ozempic or Mounjaro. The generic names are actually Semaglutide and Tirzepatide, but no one can remember that. So we give these things fancy names that are sexy from the drug companies, right? These medications are peptides. They've actually been around for a while, but recently got approved for weight management just in the last couple of years. So they're really kind of the hot, sexy new kid on the block, and you probably know somebody who's taking one of those medications if you're not using it yourself already. I do think it's really important to focus on these medications in the first video because, gosh, a lot of people are on them and are very interested in taking them because people lose weight very, very quickly on these medications. So the first thing I'm gonna talk about is the risk, and then I'm gonna talk about the benefit, and then I'm gonna talk about how you can get your hands on these medications. So let's hop into it. So the risk, at the risk of freaking everybody out is, what are the risks of GLP-1 medications, things like Ozempic and Mounjaro, and whatever GLP-1s come out in the future. The main risk is gonna be that of muscle loss. So 20 to 50% of people losing muscle mass. That is no bueno. That's very bad in terms of risk of bone fractures in the future because bone grows along lines of stress. So you've got to have strong muscles to put stress across your bones and grow those bones as you get older. So weak bones and osteoporosis, and I would bet in the next 10 years you're going to see fractures related to that. Okay, so loss of muscle mass, potential osteoporosis from that. And then just when people come off of them, if you've lost all your muscle mass, then you're in a pickle because you need muscle mass to drive your metabolic engine, right? So I talk a lot about in my video series, making sure you're getting proper protein intake. We talk about what that means. We talk about resistance training, and those are things that a person needs to build muscle mass. And you need to make sure that you're looking at your hormones too, because managing those hormones can also make it easier to build and maintain muscle mass. Okay, so those are some of the main risks. Second big risk, pancreatitis. I have seen that a couple of times. So that's pancreas inflammation, right? The third risk, there was a big French study that showed that there is a risk of thyroid cancer. It's not a huge risk. I just brushed over the C word, right? But it's not a huge risk, but it's there, right? So you have to be aware that if you're going to be taking these medications long-term, that there is somewhere floating out in the ether, it's out there, that there's a slight risk of thyroid cancer. How do we screen for that? That's a great question. No one's really answered that. It would probably be with some form of ultrasound, but it's not really become a thing yet because these medications are so new in terms of mass adoption. So you just have to know that those are kind of risks. Now, those are like big risks that are out there in the future, right? Right now, when a person's taking these medications, the big risks are going to be slowing of the gut. So constipation, reflux, like gastric reflux, or heartburn type of reflux. And in fact, it's so significant that people who are taking these medications need to stop that medication for a period of time, a week or two, depending on what your doctor says, prior to undergoing surgery, because they could easily breathe in some of the contents of their stomach, which is very not good. So you have to be cognizant of those things: reflux, constipation, belly stuff, right? And then the risks I mentioned earlier. So those are the bad things. The good things are the calming of food noise. So I've had a number of people who are they're big snackers. Maybe they have a history of some mental health things, some trauma things, depression, anxiety, and they've learned to cope with those issues in their life by eating, because eating feels good, right? And so they state that there's always kind of food calling out to them. They're always having food cravings, and it's just this constant battle for them. Maybe that's you. And a lot of those people tell me, yes, those food cravings and the food noise really tends to improve on medicines like Ozempic and Mounjaro. So that's like a major plus point, right? And a number of people will take those kind of at the beginning doses, and those cravings may come back, and then the dose gets stepped up, and side effect risks go up. But again, those food noises tend to calm down a little bit more as well. People can lose profound weight on those medications. I've seen people lose significant weight, right? So we're talking 50 pounds in a year, more, that kind of thing. So the good part is they work. They really do work. How much do they cost? I've seen people pay cash prices for name brand Mounjaro, name brand Ozempic in the hundreds of dollars, $700, $800, $900 for a month's supply, which is just bananas in my opinion. That's the name branded stuff that you're getting. If you can get it through your insurance company, you'll call your insurance company. You'll say, hey, will you pay for this Ozempic or this Mounjaro? The weight loss trade names for those are actually called Wegovy and Zepbound. Okay, so crazy names, right? So Zepbound is the same thing as Tirzepatide, is Mounjaro and Wegovy. I may be transposing those. Wegovy is the same thing as the other, right? So Wegovy and Zepbound. Forgive me if I've mixed those two up. I'm trying to record this video and focus. So the medications actually can be compounded as well through local compounding pharmacies. Now, as of the timing of this video, we're sitting in a really funny spot in the sense that the FDA is trying to figure out what to do with compounding pharmacies. That is, pharmacies, whether they're mail order or local pharmacies to you, that will actually professionally mix up compounds like Mounjaro and Ozempic. And the compounding pharmacy that I like to use for Ozempic, it's Semaglutide, is usually mixed with some B12, and they use some funky kind of legal rigmarole to get around the patents and things. And that starts at $170 a month. So if your insurance is not covering those medications, sometimes a compounding pharmacy is a great starting option for you at a more affordable price point. I don't know a lot of people with, $170 or $350 or whatever dollars sitting around per month indefinitely, but in the short and medium term, it can be a great bridge, like I talked about in my intro video. I think these are great bridges to healthy patterns, right? So kind of going back to the insurance game with these things, you'll call your insurance company and say, hey, do you cover these things? They'll say, if your doctor approves it, we'll cover them, which is just a really sleazy way, in my opinion, of saying it's on your doctor, make him do it. So people come to me, I'll say, sure, I'll prior authorize it, but please call your insurance company and ask, what is your copay going to be? Like, what's your out-of-pocket cost once we've gone through the hours of prior authorization process to get this approved for you? Because sometimes it's still hundreds of dollars per month, and people just understandably throw up their hands and say, well, that's not worth it. But oftentimes it is covered through various insurance companies, less and less I'm finding. Oftentimes I'm getting people really good deals through compounding pharmacies, though there's some legal things kind of going on with the FDA with that right now, and that may be in flux. Hopefully, if you're watching this video months after its release, that is all water under the bridge. So in interesting news, there are new GLP-1s coming out that will probably come with more profound weight loss. The way they cause weight loss, and I should have mentioned this at the beginning of the video, is by hitting those satiety centers. That is, by making you feel like you're just not hungry, by making you feel more satisfied more quickly, and by slowing the stomach down. There's a few other ways they work, but those are kind of the main things. So hopefully that helps you understand the risk, the benefit, and the cost of injectable once daily medications like Mounjaro and Ozempic. I will say that though the FDA is prohibiting compounding of those particular medications as of right now, again, there's some red tape going on, you can still kind of get those older medications, things like Victoza, liraglutide, which are kind of daily injections. I know no one likes the idea of injecting daily, but those are also associated with some pretty dang good weight loss for people. Not as good as Ozempic or Mounjaro, but they do work, and those are actually still available for compounding. Other workarounds from in the compounding world would be things like oral semaglutide. So the compounding pharmacies will actually be able to create liquid semaglutide or liquid Ozempic, which you would actually hold under your tongue for a period of time. I don't know how you do that. It seems kind of hard to me, but then that would absorb in the mouth, and then you could go ahead and swallow. And that will have similar effect and side effect to things like Ozempic, injectable once weekly, though I would imagine that the effect may not be quite as strong. So certainly worth looking into compounded liraglutide or compounded semaglutide for those of you who are trying to figure out what the heck to do if they can't get their hands on, or if you can't get your hands on those once weekly injectables now. So hopefully that's helpful. Click on the next video in the series. We're gonna hop right into my next most commonly prescribed weight loss medication, tell you all about it. Thanks.